me, I'm bunking deep in Tennessee with my brothers from the 3. We quick to click and break the peace. No respect for what they think.
What's good, everybody? What up, YouTube world? It's your boy back at it with another wrestling talk. And this time I want to talk about, based on, the Vice documentary based on wrestling, Darkside of the Ring. Now, I know I've talked about, the segment based on Chris Benoit's, situation based on his death and his wrestling career and his life and whatnot. I mean, I've been picking up on some other episodes, talk about other wrestlers based on the series and whatnot, and I must say that this show, this documentary series is amazing. I like how it pretty much talks about every detail that happened during the fate of wrestling, based on wrestlers' deaths, based on certain aspects of what happened during the time periods, based on the golden era, the attitude era, the ruthless aggression era, and outside of the WWE and, things of that nature. Just, old school wrestlers that came from the old school era and things like that, But Dark Side of the Ring, like, if I had to say what were my favorite episodes of the series, it would have to be based on, like, the Chris Benoit. That's one of them. The fate of the Von Aarons. They're like the John F. Kennedy of the Kennedys when it comes to the wrestling dynasty. The Brawl for All. I forgot about that shit. I think that time I was focusing more on the WCW back in the 90s. That was really, really interesting to watch. And to be honest, the one with New Jack, that one was insane. That's like me watching the Joker movie, and how crazy this guy New Jack is, and I wanted to do a video based on him, even though I actually mentioned about the wrestlers that I thought were assholes. And, I'm going to talk about New Jack, though, on a separate video. You know what I'm saying? But they also talked about the Fabulous Moolah. And also they talked about the death of who's that wrestler? I forgot his name, but he was before my time. It'll probably come back to me, but I know they talked. That's the guy. His name is Gino Hernandez. That's the guy. I didn't even know him because that's before my era, and also the Von Aarons too. But that's something that I had to look up in the WWE like on encyclopedia of wrestlers from back then. And the killing of Bruiser Brody, that one was dark too. How the late Bruiser Brody had been stabbed by some Puerto Rican wrestler in the locker room, and Jimmy Snuka, how he was charged of his girlfriend's murder, but kind of got away with the murder. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, I have to say that Dark Side of the Ring had to be the most interesting segment of talking about the dark side of wrestling, and based on wrestling, based on the dark paths and stuff like that. Wrestling back in the 80s and the 90s and early 2000s was crazy, based on drug use, based on conflicts, based on things of that nature. And so they mentioned about the Montreal Screwjob with Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, and I never thought they would mention about that. And the Macho Man Randy Savage and his relationship with the late Miss Elizabeth, talked about that. You know what I'm saying? So I just caught up on the first and the second seasons of Dark Side of the Ring. Excuse me. But I'm looking forward for the next episode. So I believe by this week, if I'm not mistaken, um they're going to talk about the assassination of Dino Bravo, which I've never heard of. Again, that's probably someone that was before my time. Um, but they said about how he was murdered, which this is something I like to know about, you know? So at the end of the day, you know, people got to understand that when it comes to wrestling, they may look at it as if it's choreographically fake, you know, how, excuse me, guys, they will say how wrestlers have pretty much were doing fake fighting and the stunts were fake, but some of the shit that they go through is real. The injuries are real. You know, behind backstage, they deal with a lot of conflicts with family, so-called friends, their entourage, and things of that nature. You know, wrestling outside of the camp, outside of the ring, and behind cameras, it's like they do some real crazy shit. You know, like motherfuckers will admit that they was doing coke back in the days. You know, and not only that, but using steroids. So WWE had to, you know, by the time it was like in the 2000s, you know, they had to really put on that wellness policy, you know, and that's why WWE is what it is today, you know. I mean, I can't really blame them, but at the same time, they using it too much to the point where it's killing their brand. You know what I'm saying? And WWE or WWF or whatever, they're not the same as it used to be. You know? Excuse me, guys. Hopefully my throat is not going to be to the point where it has anything to do with the COVID-19, but you know, I just got something on my throat. I don't know why I keep on coughing, but anyways, guys, don't mean to be off topic, but I just feel like, yo, this documentary is worth watching. If you are a wrestling fan, it's worth watching. If you have an open mind to like watching documentaries, then I highly set y'all to watch it. You know, Chris Jericho was a great narrator on the series, on the later episodes, you know. And like I said, you know, what's really touching was the Chris Benoit story, how, you know, Chris Benoit's death, how he killed his wife Nancy and his son. And, you know, his other son had to pretty much have to deal with the grieving part, you know, himself grieving. And, you know, wrestlers talked about how they, you know, reminisce the times that, you know, Chris Benoit made a difference in the wrestling world, and also the death of Eddie Guerrero and stuff like that. You know, but when it comes to New Jack, that's just escalated so much into the fact that New Jack was stabbing motherfuckers and basically, you know, getting away with murder, and motherfuckers want to try New Jack and also New Jack's, you know, personal life and things of that nature, you know. But other than that, though, like, the segment is really crazy, you know. But I think that when they make another episode, or if they're going to make another season, I hope they're going to make one talking about, like, people like perhaps Owen Hart, maybe China. You know, those people are worth talking about. Or maybe the fall of WCW or something like that, you know. I don't even know what else in my memory based on what tragedy happened in the wrestling world, you know, but they kind of listed everything that really happened in the wrestling world during those eras, you know. But I mean, even though they talked about Andre the Giant, which that was an HBO series, which that was really good. Got to know, you know, Andre the Giant and whatnot. So, yeah, guys. Maybe they will talk more details on other wrestlers during their situations. It won't make. I don't know if they, because it won't make sense if they're gonna focus on Eddie Guerrero, even though they mentioned him about his background during the Chris Benoit segment. But at the end of the day, if they're gonna rekindle the story, that's fine. But I think they should definitely talk about Owen Hart, maybe China, or maybe Sensational Sherry, maybe what happened in the WCW, maybe ECW's fall, or I don't know. Whatever they're gonna bring to the tables is good. What happened in American wrestling per se, or better yet, they need to talk about Abdullah the Butcher and also Hannibal, who was committed with yeah, who had like the clash between him and Abdullah Butcher, and he was tested positive for hepatitis. Because Abdullah the Butcher has hepatitis. I think they need to talk about that and how Abdullah Butcher kind of ruined Hannibal's chances to go to the WWE. And I think that's something that they need to talk about on the dark side of the ring. And at the end of the day, on that show, you get to see every wrestler's true colors. If not alive, they get to talk about the aspects about what went down during their times, during their prime and whatnot, Or better yet, I think maybe they can talk about Scott Hall or somebody, or Jake the Snake Roberts. I don't know if it makes sense or not, but, the show is going so good that they can continue on talk about other wrestlers' legacies and their deaths and stuff like that. Maybe talk about Chris Candido, maybe the late Crash Hawley, somebody like that per se, And maybe they can talk about, what's going on with the WWE, with the Vince McMahon, or like I said, WCW, or whatever the case may be, though, But at the end of the day, that show, Dark Side of the Ring, that segment they put, it's amazing. Vice is known for interviewing and documenting some real shit, you know what I mean? And it's not your boring, typical ABC or NBC type of feel. It's like, it attracts the young viewers, you know what I'm saying? From millennials to Generation X type people, you know what I mean? So, like, if you was born in the 80s and early to late 90s or whatever, or the 70s or whatnot, I mean, like I said, y'all, like, Dark Side of the Ring, it's a very, 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 very good documentary, y'all. Like, well scripted, and you see the truth about it, and it's like, it's unfiltered. You know what I mean? That's the beautiful part. It's the way it's unfiltered. Like, you get to know exactly what's going on in the heads of each person who was around during the times. Like, people like Jim Cornette, Vince Russo, Chris Jericho, Jim Ross, or anybody who's been around during certain aspects. Like, for example, for the New Jack, it just showed his true colors, you know what I mean? Families and things of that sort, But anyways, y'all, I highly suggest y'all to watch that series, man. And like I said, with the next episode that's coming this week is the assassination of Dino Bravo. I gotta check this guy out. I don't even know who the hell this guy is, but I need to check him out. And if I'm interested in his legacy, his wrestling, his matches and stuff like that, I gotta really do my homework on this dude. You know what I mean? Like I said, I've been a wrestling fan practically almost all my life since the 90s, you know? And, you know, I remember some of these wrestlers and also, you know, forgot some aspects about wrestling. You know, at the end of the day, it really all depends on what I can remember. And I was not really watching both wrestling promotions at the same time. It was mostly, you know, based on competition. Just like, you know, how I remember it was how I started wrestling. Wrestling, it was based on the Monday Night Wars. You know what I'm saying? My first wrestling promotion that I started with was WWF. But then when I saw WCW, I clinged to that a lot more than watching WWF. And then by WCW was kind of fucking up a little bit, WWF got a little bit better. You know what I'm saying? So at the end of the day, it's like this, y'all. With wrestling, it's just like me watching sports, like basketball, football, soccer, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? I don't even watch them shits like that at all. And, you know, wrestling, I grew up around some of the eras, you know what I'm saying? And I can tell motherfuckers about Chris Benoit and Owen Hart, Chris Candido, Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, things like that, you know? Stone Cold, The Rock, Triple H, based on their legacy. But since some of these wrestlers had nothing to do with the show, and just me saying I'm a fan, but if you watch Darkside of the Ring, if you grew up around wrestling, you know exactly how the wrestling game is. You know how these other people, you grew up around the era. That's all I can really say. So you be intrigued on watching it because the shit that they're saying is true. They can't make this shit up, even if they wanted to. Just like if they make up how their storylines is and all that, that's entertainment. But the shit that they go through and the shit that went down, that shit is not fabricated. So, anyways, y'all, I highly suggest y'all to check that show out on Vice. If you don't have cable, that's why you got YouTube. They motherfuckers is streaming that shit on YouTube. So whatever you can catch, watch it. But the ones that I highly suggest y'all to watch is Chris Benoit, Part 1 and Part 2. New Jack. I say Brawl for All. Chris Candido. Oh, not Chris Candido, but Jimmy Snuka. And the Brawl, like I said, for the Brawl for All, and Gino Hernandez and the Von Erings. Also, Bruiser Brody, the killing of Bruiser Brody. I mean, all of them is good, but if I had to say what my favorites are, it had to be the two segments of Chris Benoit, the Brawl for All, and New Jack, and also the Von Erings. The Von Erings is more fucking touching, you know. That's like witnessing and watching the falls of the Kennedy family. That's how fucked up that shit is, you know. But anyways, guys, I'm just gonna have to wrap this up. Please leave your comments on the comment sections below. Love to know everybody's opinion. Make sure you share, like, hit that bell icon, and subscribe to the channel. Until then, folks, SBX wrapping this up. Thanks for watching. Peace out, be safe, and see you on the crossroads.
Bitch, get off of me, I'm fucking deep in Tennessee.